But we haven't talked about any of the other entries yet, and they're even more divisive. What's the story on, like, Deep Space Nine and everything after that?
Oh man, DS9 didn't just change Star Trek, it changed television.
What? How?
Well, the thing you need to understand is that TOS had aired on NBC back in the 60s, but Paramount Studios held the rights to the IP after it went off the air, and Viacom wouldn't merge Paramount with CBS until 1994. Both TNG and DS9 aired during those in-between years, so they actually became the only two Star Trek shows to air entirely in syndication. That means they had a studio, Paramount, but no network, no station. Instead, they licensed the broadcast rights to as many unrelated networks and stations as could afford them. And the result was that both of these Star Trek shows were just everywhere back in the 90s.
In the era of cable television? That's kind of unheard of, right?
Oh, for sure, and almost equally so in today's era of hyper-exclusive streaming rights. I mean, this kind of situation wasn't really possible except between the 70s and 90s, broadly.
But what did DS9 do that TNG didn't?
Well, for one thing, it was the first time that Gene Roddenberry wasn't really involved at all.
Why? Because he'd finally had it?
In the British sense, yeah. A couple years prior to DS9.
Oh, damn. So was Rick Berman behind DS9 too?
As a creator, yes. But he actually took over the entire franchise after Roddenberry's death. So Michael Piller took the first 2 seasons of DS9, and then the other 5 had Ira Stephen Bear, who was really the one who gave DS9 its unique identity.
All right, cool. What else was different?
So, most shows of the time, including TNG, told stories in an episodic format, meaning while there might be some grander story arcs in the course of the show, you could reasonably expect whatever story you're watching to wrap up nicely by the end of the episode. There were some serial-based shows back then where stories unfold over seasons or even series, but the vast majority of those were daytime soap operas.
Really? I mean, I'm immediately thinking of like Game of Thrones, Stranger Things, Breaking Bad.
I mean, yeah, the serial format is fully normalized today, but 30 years ago, Deep Space Nine was one of the first shows of its kind, a serial sci-fi drama in syndication, getting Emmy nods for all 7 years it was on the air.
Wait, DS9 got Emmy nods?
As did TNG, yes, but DS9 got them every year for 7 years in a row, nominated 31 times and won 4.
Holy crap, in syndication?
I know, it's incredible.
What made it so good?
Well, for one, the writing. I mean, and I don't really mean dialogue. I mean that grand arc storytelling, which largely centered on the franchise's first leading black man, Avery Brooks, as Captain Benjamin Sisko. Sisko is arguably the most complex captain in the whole canon, not least because he's also a prominent emissary in the Bajoran religion.
Wait. A Starfleet captain is also a religious figure?
Weird, right? And the acting. Star Trek was famously criticized for inconsistent quality of acting, but the DS9 cast was exceptional. Also, hair, makeup, costumes. DS9 fleshed out the Ferengi, the Trill, the Cardassians, and the Bajorans, but they also introduced the Jem'Hadar, the Vorta, the Changelings. All of them were distinct, strikingly interesting, and instantly recognizable. Oh, and let's not forget what is arguably its most influential contribution to canon, Section 31.
Uh-oh, what's Section 31?
Federation Black Ops, basically. There's a new series coming out starring Michelle Yeoh as a Section 31 agent.
Whoa, so that's what DS9 is remembered for?
No, what DS9 is ultimately remembered for is its tone. Not to spoil anything, but nearly the entire series sees the station under unrelenting hostility from multiple enemy factions. Consequently, our protagonists don't really have the luxury of being as squeaky clean as someone like Picard, for example. One of the main characters is a former terrorist, one might be guilty of a war crime or two, another is secretly an illegally superhuman augment that gets outed by Section 31, another inadvertently becomes an accessory to murder.
Sheesh.
Yeah, Roddenberry's original design is still in the car that DS9 drives, but it's kind of the kid sleeping in the back seat who needs to be sheltered from all the extreme adversity outside.
Wow. Okay. What about Voyager? I think that's the earliest one that Trekkies still fight about.
Oh, man. So Voyager was showrun by Jerry Taylor and Brannon Braga and was the first Star Trek show to serve as a flagship launch title for a brand new TV network and station, that being UPN, which later merged with Warner Brothers to become the CW network. Being a launch title, Voyager was one of the most aggressively marketed new IPs in the franchise, but since it was also the first show since the original to be tied to an actual network, its reach was far less than TNG or DS9. But despite all that, Voyager still had an enormous impact on the canon and the culture, not to mention that its 2-hour pilot was the most expensive in TV history up to that point.
Voyager set the record for that?
It's been broken many times since, but yeah, and it's for such a stupid reason. See, they'd had a hard time casting the first female captain of a canonical Trek series. They had managed to film a fraction of the pilot with an actress named Genevieve Bujold playing Nicole Janeway, but she quit on day 2 after realizing it really wasn't for her. So they scrapped filming and recast the role of Catherine Janeway to Kate Mulgrew before starting filming again. They shot close to half of it with Mulgrew, but then the network execs said that her hair was too fine to wear down on camera, so they ordered everything to be shot again with her hair pinned up, only for it to go back to down by season 4.
That sounds frustratingly inefficient, but what about the plot, though?
Well, plot-wise, Voyager is the ultimate exploration of what value altruistic Federation principles provide when you're half a galaxy away from Federation space, which is really kind of a double-edged sword, because on one hand, they're constantly subjected to unknown amounts of unfamiliar danger. But on the other hand, since Voyager is constantly on the move, not only are they immune to any sustained long-term conflict like DS9 had, but it also puts Voyager in the ultimate exploratory position. Exploration became categorically the only thing Voyager could really do on their way home. Not to mention that a third of the crew isn't even Starfleet to begin with. They're from a rebel faction called the Maquis, but they're forced to join forces to survive. Oh, and shout out to the ship. Man, that Intrepid-class starship is just phenomenally cool and influenced a ton of later designs like the Enterprise E.
Gotta love a great ship. And you said they had the first female captain?
Not the first ever female captain in all of Star Trek, but the first to star in a series, yes. And in my opinion, Catherine Janeway is the most compelling captain in the entire franchise. Scrappy, resolute, but also sensitive and empathetic. And the whole crew is one of the most diverse in all of Star Trek, which is saying a hell of a lot. We had Chakotay, the first and so far only officer to be Indigenous American. We had Tuvok, the first Black Vulcan. We had the half Latina, half Klingon chief engineer, B'Elanna Torres.
Oh, shoot. Doesn't this show have, like, the former Borg drone, too?
Dude.
What?
7 of 9 has got to have the most incredible, most heartbreaking, most inspiring narrative arc of almost any character in all Star Trek. And you got to understand, Spock is my boy. That character is sacred to me above all others. By the way, Ethan Peck, you are crushing it. and I love you. But Seven's journey from a Borg drone assimilated as a child to a grown woman trying desperately and clumsily to forge her own human identity, knowing she may never meet any humans outside the Voyager crew, she's just...
A smoke show?
Come on, show some respect for the current captain of the Enterprise.
Wait, what?
Listen, this might take a while. Why don't you go clear your schedule while I order us a pizza?